Michelangelo, the Renaissance man. Michelangelo is considered by many to be the most famous artist in the 16th century, and by some to be the most famous artist in history. Likewise, many consider him to be a true Renaissance man because of his extreme versatility and many talents in the arts. His artwork helped redefine popular culture during his time. It would seem that he was born and raised to create and fill our world with art that would stand the test of time. He was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, poet, and engineer during the High Renaissance period of 1495 to 1520. The High Renaissance period is well known for being a time that produced exceptional art in Italy and Rome. Michelangelo had an unrivaled impact on art during that time, with lasting effects that still influence artists today. He has many artworks that are considered to be amongst the most well-known and recognized worldwide. He is most famous for his Pietà and David sculptures, and his Sistine Chapel frescoes and ceiling paintings. Michelangelo was born on March 6, 1475, in Capri, Italy. His family returned to Florence not too long after he was born. In 1481, when he was only 6 years old, his mother died, and his father sent him to live with a stonecutter and his wife in Settignano, where his father owned a farm and marble quarry. It is unclear why his father chose this path for his son. However, it was in Settignano, under the guidance of the stonecutter and his family, that he learned to carve marble and developed his love for the art of sculpting. In 1488, Michelangelo was sent to Florence to learn grammar. However, at the age of 13, he became an apprentice to a painter named Domenico Ghirlandaio, since he had no interest in school. Michelangelo found his niche by learning the mastery of fresco mural painting from Ghirlandaio, and was paid as an artist by the time he was 14 years old. Later that same year, in 1489, Lorenzo de' Medici, a patron to many scholars, artists, and poets, invited Michelangelo to live in his home and learn from the scholars and writers that Medici supported. A sculptor by the name of Bertoldo di Giovanni was one of his mentors. From 1490 to 1492, Michelangelo studied at the Humanist Academy originated by Medici. It was during this time that Michelangelo sculpted the Madonna of the Steps and the Battle of the Centaurs. The Madonna was sculpted showing her profile, which was considered to be the easiest technique for a shadow relief carving. However, the Christ child was carved with a twisted physique, revealing a detailed muscular figure. The comprehensive, well-developed anatomy became an identifiable artistic signature in Michelangelo's carvings. The Battle of the Centaurs depicted numerous intricate figures entwined in a similar fashion to that of an ancient Roman sarcophagus. The death of Lorenzo de' Medici in 1492 brought about significant changes in the support for artistic endeavors and coincided with the end of the Golden Age of Florence. After Medici's death in 1493, Michelangelo returned home to his father, where he carved a wooden crucifix as a gift for the Florentine church of Santo Spirito, the Basilica of the Holy Spirit. He was grateful for the church allowing him to study the anatomy of corpses in their hospital. During this time, between 1493 and 1494, he bought a large block of marble and carved a statue of Hercules. The statue was sent to France, but was lost during the 18th century. Later that same year, Michelangelo left Florence and went to Bologna to avoid the political chaos brought on by Savonarola, an Italian friar who helped King Charles VIII of France overthrow the ruling of Medici. In 1496, at the age of 21, Michelangelo traveled to Rome, where he was commissioned by Cardinal Raffaele Diario to sculpt a statue of the Roman wine god Bacchus. When the statue was completed in 1497, the cardinal decided he didn't like it and refused to accept it. It ended up in the garden of a banker named Jacopo Galli. Later that year, Michelangelo was commissioned by French Cardinal Jean-Pierre de la Grolas to create a marble statue for his tomb of the Virgin Mary with her lifeless son, Jesus, resting in her arms. Michelangelo worked on the statue from 1498 to 1499. The statue is called the Pietà. It is 69 inches tall and resides in the St. Peter's Basilica. Michelangelo finished it when he was 24 years old. It was the only one of his works that he signed. In 1501, Michelangelo returned to Florence, where he was commissioned to create the marble statue of David. David is considered by some to be the most realistic and thought-provoking statue ever chiseled. Unlike many other statues, the David has extraordinary detail of the male physique, which Michelangelo no doubt learned while he studied the anatomy of the cadavers in the Santo Spirito Hospital. Additionally, rather than having David face forward, he sculpted him to appear to be looking at his adversary, the giant Goliath. When we look upon him, he stands as a beacon of light to represent innocence, strength, and heroism in the face of an impossible situation. The statue is 17 feet tall and resides in the Galleria dell'Accademia. In 1505, Michelangelo was commissioned by Pope Julius II to create about 40 life-size marble statues for his tomb. The Pope ran out of funds due to his military pursuits, so Michelangelo left Rome. He returned in 1508 when Pope Julius II commissioned him to paint the 12 apostles on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Over the next 4 years, he painted 12 figures, 7 prophets, and 5 sibyls, which were female prophets of myth, around the border of the ceiling. The center was painted with various scenes from Genesis. The most famous painting is the creation of Adam, where God and Adam reach out to touch each other's hands, signifying a deep desire for a divine relationship between God and man. Michelangelo made it well known that he did not want the painting project. During 1513 through 1515, Michelangelo created the biblical sculptures of Moses, Rachel, and Leah for Pope Julius II's funeral monument. He also created what were to be many depictions of various slave sculptures for the Pope's tomb. For example, the dying slave and the rebellious slave sculptures were completed by 1520. Michelangelo created the Medici Chapel statues between 1520 and 1534. During 1520 to 1527, Michelangelo worked on the interior of the Medici Chapel in Florence. He completed wall designs, windows, and cornices with new forms and new designs. The sack of Rome, a mutiny battle of Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, in Rome in 1527, put an abrupt end to the Roman Renaissance period. Michelangelo completed the day, night, dawn, and desk sculptures for the tomb of Lorenzo by 1533. He also created the Giuliano de' Medici, the Duke of Nemours, and the Lorenzo de' Medici, Duke of Urbino, statues for the tomb of Lorenzo during this time. In 1534, the Medici Pope Clement VII commissioned Michelangelo to paint a fresco called The Last Judgment on the wall behind the altar in the Sistine Chapel. The painting signified the second coming of Christ and the Apocalypse. Clement VII died 2 days after Michelangelo arrived. Michelangelo characteristically painted Christ as a muscular figure portrayed as being young, vibrant, and naked. There was some controversy about the nudity of the characters in the painting between Michelangelo and Cardinal Carafa, known as the Fig Leaf Campaign. The genitalia in the fresco was later covered up by another painter named Daniele da Volterra. Michelangelo also designed the dome of the St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, which was completed after his death. The dome was originally designed by Donatello Bramante, who laid the foundation stones in 1506. Bramante was replaced by Giuliano da Sangallo, Fra Giocondo, and Raphael in 1513 after the death of Pope Julius. After Raphael died in 1520, he was replaced by Baldassare Peruzzi, who did not complete the plans because of the political state of the church at the time. After Rome was sacked in 1527, Antonio de Sangallo the Younger proposed a new plan for the dome. However, in 1547, Pope Paul III succeeded Sangallo the Younger and insisted that Michelangelo, now in his 70s, take over the construction of the dome. Similarly to the situation of painting the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo did not want to take on the St. Peter's project, but was forced by Paul III to do so against his wishes. Michelangelo used the ideas from the previous architects and developed a plan using Bramante's main features for the structure. However, he eliminated the corner towers and changed the shape of the dome to an octagon. He leaned toward more of a vertical design than the horizontal design of Bramante. He strongly disagreed with Sangallo's ideas and sent a letter to Paul III voicing his objections. After Michelangelo's death in 1564, Giacomo della Porta and Domenico Fontana completed the dome in 1590, appointed by Pope Sixtus V. In 1607, Carlo Maderno's plans for a nave, 3 huge bays with pilasters, and a facade were added to Michelangelo's final plans for the dome. Maderno also designed a nathrex, a long barrel vault ornately decorated, and portals behind the facade of St. Peter's. The time, effort, and enormous amount of resources that went into the completion of the dome is both fascinating and amazing. Michelangelo's dome seems to possess the divine spiritual magnificence he associated with his works during his lifetime. It is almost as though you can feel his presence simply by gazing at the beauty and brilliance of his numerous creations. It isn't difficult to understand why so many people throughout the ages have admired Michelangelo and considered him to be the most prominent artist of all. Although he possessed some undesirable qualities when it came to human relations, it would seem that most would easily overlook his imperfections for the opportunity to partake in his artistic genius.